Gillian Turner, former National Security Council staffer under Presidents George W. Bush and Barack Obama. She's here with some perspective on President Trump's UN speech. Gillian, good evening. You've seen a lot of these things. This one on the scale.
You know, a lot of UN speeches that we get these days are sort of stock, and they've got stock elements to them. I think President Trump included just the right amount of those, but also really made it his own this morning. When I talk about stock elements, I'm talking about things like expressions about universal feelings and desires and yearnings for freedom and democracy and yearnings to not live under dictatorships and despots. The president really included some of that today, but he also veered off track, not necessarily in a pejorative sense, but he veered off track from other presidents like President Bush. He took a sort of muffled jab at him when he talked about how the United States doesn't want to impose democracy around the world. That was a direct reference to things that President Bush included in his own UN addresses 8 years ago. He was a little bit like President Obama in that he wasn't afraid to name and shame. He called out North Korea and Iran and Russia and China, and he also named our allies, taking special care to thank countries like Jordan and Lebanon for helping to ease the crisis resulting from Syria's civil war.
I mean, clearly it was direct and bold. You're getting reaction, obviously, from both sides of the aisle very differently. A couple of tweets here. Representative Mark Takano, shockingly reckless. The human cost of destroying North Korea would be counted in the millions of lives, including thousands of Americans. Representative Barbara Lee, not surprisingly, dangerous rhetoric, abdication of values from President Trump at the UN. Congress must stand by the Iran deal and work to de-escalate tensions with North Korea. But on the flip side, Mitt Romney. President Trump gave a strong and needed challenge to UN members to live up to its charter and to confront global challenges. And Newt Gingrich, President Trump's United Nations speech is historic and sets a new standard. Sovereignty and national interest are reasserted as principles. Gillian, is this the new Trump doctrine or the evolution of the Trump doctrine that we've seen through all these speeches? The America first, but also each country's sovereignty, able to handle big problems together, but also their own problems inside their country.
I think that is the Trump doctrine, and something he took care to say in this speech that I hadn't really heard him enunciate so clearly and directly before is that to him, America First isn't just ironically about the United States. It's actually a model for the entire world, by which he means every single nation state around the world and every national leader by extension should put its own interests and the interests of its citizens first, and that this is ultimately the way we see progress in the international order. This is ultimately how countries become the best possible versions of themselves. And he really fleshed that out a little bit in the speech today. And I think that was something that's going to resonate with people when they stop and think about it. Really, that America First is not just for the United States, but an ideology and a model for everybody.
I'll ask Secretary Tillerson about all of that as well coming up. Gillian, thank you. What do you think will happen between the U.S. and North Korea, and what was your take on the president's speech today? Let me know on Twitter at Brett Baier. You can use the hashtag Special Report, or on Facebook at facebook.com/BrettBaierSR.